It was a cool Friday morning in Seattle, and 16-year-old Jaden Carter walked into the Emerald Sky Lounge with a calm, confident stride. He wore a gray hoodie, some jeans, and carried a backpack with a single strap slung over his shoulder. His AirPods were in, and he was nodding slightly to some smooth jazz that he'd recently fallen in love with. One of the many things his mom had introduced him to. He had a first-class ticket booked on a domestic flight to Los Angeles, where he was scheduled to meet his mom for a weekend retreat in Malibu. She was flying in separately from a business meeting in Zurich and had arranged everything in advance. Jaden wasn't flashy. He didn't wear chains or expensive sneakers. In fact, if you didn't know him, you might just think he was an ordinary kid. And that's exactly what pilot Gregory Hayes assumed when he walked into the lounge and spotted Jaden sitting alone near the window. Gregory Hayes had worked as a commercial pilot for over 20 years. He prided himself on being professional, disciplined, and in his own words, a good judge of character. The moment he laid eyes on Jaden, something in him twisted. What's this kid doing here, he thought. He eyed the hoodie, the headphones, the laid-back posture. The VIP lounge was nearly empty, and Jaden was the only person under 30 in the room. Gregory marched up to the front desk. "Excuse me," he said to the concierge. "That young man by the window, does he have permission to be in here?" The concierge blinked. "Yes, sir." He scanned his ticket at the entrance. "First-class passenger." Gregory frowned. "You're sure?" "Yes, I verified it myself," she replied. Still unsatisfied, Gregory walked over to Jaden, who had just taken out one AirPod, and looked up politely. "Can I help you, sir?" Jaden asked. "This lounge is for first-class passengers only," Gregory said firmly. "I know," Jaden replied calmly. "I'm flying first class. My ticket's already been scanned." Gregory narrowed his eyes. "Whose name is the ticket under?" Jaden hesitated. "It's under my name, Jaden Carter." Gregory scoffed. "Right, and I suppose you just happened to find your way into this lounge on your own?" Jaden blinked. "I just walked in, like everyone else." Gregory folded his arms. "Stay right there. I'm calling security." Despite the stares from two older passengers across the lounge, Jaden stayed seated, his face a mix of confusion and quiet frustration. A few minutes later, two uniformed security guards entered the lounge, followed by an airport police officer. Gregory spoke to them privately, gesturing toward Jaden. Soon after, they approached him. "Sir, we're going to need to see your ID and ticket," the officer said. Jaden calmly reached into his backpack and pulled out both. "Here." The officer examined them. "This seems to check out, but we've had reports of loitering and possible unauthorized entry into the VIP area." "I literally walked in like everyone else," Jaden said, trying to keep his voice steady. Gregory stepped in. "Listen, officers, that ticket could be fake, or someone else's. Look at him. Does he look like someone flying first class?" The words hung in the air like poison. Jaden's face tightened. The officer gave Gregory a look, but turned back to Jaden. "Do you have any proof of purchase?" Jaden sighed and pulled out his phone. He scrolled to an email from Dr. Maya Carter, his mother, confirming the itinerary and booking. The officer skimmed the email. His eyes widened at the signature. "Founder and CEO, Nova Air." The officer stepped back. "Sir, this appears to be legitimate." Gregory leaned over to glance at the phone. The name hit him like a freight train. Carter. Nova Air. "No way," he muttered. Jaden stared at him. "I told you, my mom will clear this up. She's on her way." Gregory scoffed again, though this time with a bit less confidence. 15 minutes later, a ripple of motion shook the tarmac outside. A sleek, all-white private jet touched down on a reserved runway. The Nova Air logo gleamed in the sunlight. Everyone in the lounge turned to look as the jet taxied to a stop not far from the terminal. A black SUV pulled up to the plane. A tall, elegant black woman stepped out, dressed in a cream business suit, high heels, and sunglasses. She walked with purpose, escorted by two airline officials and a personal assistant. Her hair was in a perfect bun, and her expression was unreadable. The terminal door opened, and in walked Dr. Maya Carter, the youngest self-made billionaire in aviation, owner and founder of Nova Air, and one of the most powerful women in the world. Jaden stood up the moment she entered. "Mom," he said softly. Maya's eyes found him instantly. "Jaden, are you all right?" He nodded, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. Maya turned to the officer. "Who is responsible for detaining my son?" He nodded, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. Maya turned to the officer. "Who is responsible for detaining my son?" The officer looked uneasy. There was a misunderstanding. "One of the crew members." "Who?" she snapped. "Name." The officer hesitated, then pointed to Gregory. Gregory stood there, frozen. Maya walked up to him slowly. "You accused my son of trespassing?" I didn't recognize him," Gregory stammered. "He didn't look like someone who belonged here," she finished. Gregory said nothing. Maya's voice dropped. "You judged a young man based on his appearance. You humiliated him in public. You questioned his integrity. You called the police on the son of your employer." Gasps filled the lounge. Maya continued, "Effective immediately, you are suspended. Do not show up for your flight. Do not wear that uniform again. You'll be contacted by HR within 24 hours. And believe me, if I find that this wasn't your first offense, you'll never fly again for anyone." Gregory was speechless. "Now," Maya said, turning to her assistant, "escort this man out of my terminal." The lounge was silent as Gregory gathered his things and was led out by airport staff. A few moments later, a woman sitting nearby began to clap. Then another. Then the entire lounge erupted into applause. Jaden looked down, embarrassed, but proud. Maya put a hand on his shoulder. "Come on, let's go home." Later that week, the story went viral. A leaked video from the security footage made its way online, showing Gregory confronting Jaden, the arrival of Dr. Maya Carter, and her powerful takedown of the situation. Comments flooded in. "This is what power with grace looks like. That pilot's career just crash-landed. Never underestimate a quiet black kid in a hoodie. He might be the son of the boss." Nova Air issued a formal apology. Gregory was terminated after an internal review confirmed prior complaints. Maya launched a new initiative within her company called Elevate, a mentorship program for underrepresented youth in aviation. And as for Jaden, he quietly went back to school, where he now tutors younger students in math and science, still wearing that same gray hoodie, still listening to jazz, still quiet, but with a stronger sense of pride in who he was and where he came from. End.
The sun was barely rising over the city skyline as Jasmine Carter stepped out of her black electric SUV. She adjusted the cuffs of her beige blazer, her heels clicking softly against the marble pavement outside the bank's main branch. It was a sleek building, glass and steel, proud and tall in the heart of downtown. Most people passing by would never guess that the woman who walked so gracefully toward its doors owned the very institution. But Jasmine didn't care about recognition. She never had. From the very beginning, she had worked in silence building her company, Carter Tech Investments, from the ground up. She had been laughed out of boardrooms, dismissed in interviews, and underestimated countless times, not just for being a woman, but for being a black woman in a white male-dominated industry. She learned to move with quiet power. That's why she preferred not to flaunt her wealth. But that Tuesday morning, she would be reminded that no matter how much you accomplish, There are always those who refuse to see you for who you are. She walked into the bank branch with a soft smile, clutching a leather folder and a checkbook. She planned to withdraw $50,000 from one of her accounts. Nothing unusual, just a quick visit before heading to the office. She had a presentation to review, a team meeting to lead, and a working lunch with 2 potential investors. Everything in her day was structured, timed, and efficient. She approached the counter calmly, greeted the teller, and handed over her ID and the withdrawal slip. "Good morning," she said warmly. "I'm here to withdraw $50,000 from Carter Tech's operations account. Here are my credentials." The young teller, a nervous-looking man in his 20s, glanced at her ID, then at his screen. His fingers hovered awkwardly above the keyboard. He glanced at the amount again and raised an eyebrow. One moment, please," he muttered, and disappeared behind a side door. Jasmine took a seat in the lobby, legs crossed, back straight. She didn't think much of it. High withdrawals often required verification. It was standard protocol. But what happened next would change her morning entirely. A tall man with slicked back hair, wearing a navy blue suit and a forced smile, emerged from the side hallway. His name tag read, Mr. Robert Kellerman, branch manager. He approached Jasmine with a stiff posture and a look that she recognized all too well. The polite skepticism of someone who had already made up their mind. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to have to ask you a few questions." Jasmine stood up, her expression calm. "Of course." He motioned to a side desk, and they both sat down. "You're attempting to withdraw $50,000 from a business account that, frankly, has no identifying features matching your profile." Jasmine blinked. "I submitted my ID, business license copy, and signature card. They all match. You can check the system." He gave a condescending chuckle. "You'll understand that these kinds of large transactions raise red flags. We can't just hand over that kind of money based on a story." "A story?" she echoed, raising an eyebrow. Robert leaned forward. "Do you even know what kind of business Carter Tech Investments is, or what its EIN number is?" Jasmine stared at him, stunned for a moment, not by the question, but by the audacity behind it. He was testing her, challenging her legitimacy in a space that she owned. But she played along. "It's a private equity firm focused on green tech startups and AI integration in small to mid-level operations. The EIN ends in 4271. Would you like the routing number as well?" Robert's smirk faltered for just a moment before returning. "I'll need to make some calls. Please wait here." Jasmine looked him dead in the eye. "You have exactly 7 minutes." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You have 7 minutes to confirm my identity and release the funds. After that, I will make one phone call and you will no longer work here." He laughed openly this time. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," she said softly, "and a courtesy, one you clearly don't deserve." Robert walked away shaking his head, clearly unconcerned. Jasmine reached into her bag, pulled out her phone and glanced at the time. 8:42 a.m. The clock had started. She waited patiently. Her calmness wasn't fake. It came from years of experience dealing with people exactly like him. She remembered a board member who once told her, "You're not really CEO material. You should maybe focus on HR instead." That same man had to watch her accept Forbes Tech Leader of the Year just 2 years later. 8:47 a.m. 5 minutes had passed. A teller walked by and gave her a curious glance, clearly sensing tension in the air. 8:49 a.m. 7 minutes. Jasmine stood up and calmly made her way to the teller who had initially helped her. "May I please use your phone?" she asked. The teller, caught off guard, nodded and handed her the landline. She dialed a number from memory. "Lena," she said when the assistant picked up. "Connect me to Stephen Marks. Now." 30 seconds later, she was speaking to the Chief Operating Officer of the entire banking corporation. "Stephen," she said, "this is Jasmine. I'm standing in the downtown branch being denied access to my own company's funds. I've been profiled, interrogated, and treated like a criminal. Stephen's voice tightened instantly. What? She gave him a brief summary. You have 2 minutes to fix this before I walk out and make this public. I suggest you move fast. She handed the phone back and sat down again, her expression still unreadable. Within 90 seconds, the atmosphere in the branch shifted. A call came in. Phones started ringing. A woman in a grey suit rushed out of the back office, whispering frantically into a headset. Then Robert returned, this time pale, sweating, and visibly shaken. Miss Carter, I didn't know. We weren't informed. She held up her hand. Save it. He tried again. Please understand, we have protocols. She stood. Let me be very clear. You didn't follow protocol. You followed bias. You saw a black woman requesting a large sum and assumed I was lying, or worse, stealing. No, that's not. You didn't even check my credentials. You dismissed them outright. You dismissed me, and now you're going to face the consequences. Stephen himself was now on the line with the regional director, who had called the branch directly. Robert's phone rang. He picked it up with trembling hands. Yes, sir. Understood. I'll gather my things. He hung up slowly, his face drained. Jasmine walked past him toward the counter. Please process my withdrawal, she told the teller kindly. Same amount. The teller nodded quickly and completed the transaction with shaking hands. Within minutes, Jasmine had the certified check in hand. She turned back one last time and looked at Robert. For future reference, she said, always assume the woman in the room might just be the one who signs your paycheck. She left the bank calmly, head high. Outside, the city moved on as usual. But inside that branch, everyone knew they'd just witnessed a shift in power. Word spread quickly. By that afternoon, news of the incident had reached the upper levels of the corporation. Human Resources launched an internal investigation into profiling across all branches. Diversity and sensitivity training was mandated company-wide. And Jasmine? She never mentioned the incident in public. She didn't need to. Her silence carried more weight than any speech. But those who knew her, those who followed her rise, they told the story. They told it as a reminder that power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits and strikes with quiet, undeniable force.